All right, joined by Alex Myers from Golf Digest. And Alex, we go back, man, I can think of majors we've covered, the players over the years. We talked about Sergio being one of our favorite players at different events, way back in the day when we started covering golf. But Alex, what's happening, man? How are you?
I I'm doing great, man. Yeah, it's good to catch up. Obviously, ahead of the Open, I know we've both been over there a bunch. It's a unique event. I'm not getting over there this year, unfortunately, but
Right.
yeah, it's obviously one of the coolest events of the year.
Yeah, I'm glad you went straight into the Open because I think if anyone listens to your podcast, they heard the emotion you had and just the passion you have for Tommy Fleetwood in describing what he's gone through. It feels like if golf gods do exist, Alex, it feels like they're conspiring or they have conspired at least till this moment against him in some of these big events. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. Some guys just I don't know. They're cursed or whatever you want to call it. I mean, I think of Lee Westwood, right? I mean, a great player who certainly had plenty of success on the European Tour and the Ryder Cup. So many close calls at the majors. I know he won a couple PGA Tour events, but certainly didn't win as much as like we'd think. And Tommy
Mm,
Fleetwood's kind of building a similar resume. But you mentioned Sergio. I mean, for years it was Sergio was that guy as well, and it was like, well, he's never going to win a major. And then he wins the Masters, which is the one we least expected. So there's still
right.
plenty of time for Tommy to get it done. But what I saw at the Travelers Championship with that bogey finish to Keegan's birdie after he was leading the entire day, it just was just an incredibly heartbreaking loss for him. I know he's a great guy. I know he'll bounce back, but that was tough to watch.
Yeah, well, I would say situational is so important when we think about Tommy. I agree that in the negative side to that argument of him, yes, absolutely, he blew it in that regard. Like who bogeys that hole
Right,
ever at the
it's an easy
Travelers?
hole.
Like
Yeah.
so, you have to give him that as a negative. But I will say this: I did talk to him for today's golfer there in the UK. I did a chat with him at Bay Hill, and we went straight to Port Rush and just make it all about Port Rush. And you know what he told me? When it comes to major championships, what he's learned the most is he has to improve putting between 5 and 10 feet. What are the things he can
Okay.
control, right? Short putts.
Yeah.
And we think of him typically as a pretty good putter, um,
Right.
unless it's to beat Johnny Miller's record at the U.S. Open in
Right.
2018. No big deal. He missed that easy one. Just never had a chance from 6 feet. So
Right.
he brings up a really good point. Now, I'm curious how you react to that.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think that I would say 90% of PGA Tour pros under the pressure with a chance to close it out are doing some kind of choking or not playing up to what they could, getting tense on putts. And Tommy just happens to be so good that he puts himself in those situations so many times that we've seen it play out that way. Now, oftentimes you get two guys who are both kind of choking. This happened to me on my golf trip last week. I mean,
Of
I'm
course it
choking,
did.
my friend's choking, and I said to him, I said, look, man, don't feel bad. Like the best players in the world, they see their name at the top of the leaderboard and it's a totally different ball game. It's totally different, right? So oftentimes you have guys pitted up against each other and it's like a matter of who's going to choke less, who wins. And for whatever reason, Tommy's been unlucky enough to not be given one or two. Like I think back to Lee Westwood, one of his only wins was in Memphis. That was when Robert Garrigus made his famous triple
Yeah.
bogey on the final hole. No,
That's
Lee
one of the
Westwood,
craziest. Oh,
one of the craziest chokes we've ever seen. Yeah. So
ever.
that's why Lee Westwood got one of his wins. So he got lucky in a choke off. The other guy choked worse. So again, it's human nature. It's brutal. And again, we see how Tommy Fleetwood, I mean, obviously Scotty is Scotty, but in terms of playing good, consistent golf, and I know Xander has the cut streak as well, so you throw his name in there as well.
For
But
sure.
Tommy Fleetwood, the amount of just top 25s. I mean, he's always playing the weekend. He's always like kind of in the mix, if not all the way up in the mix. And so, that's why to me it's like you put yourself in that position enough times, you should start to win. But yeah, like I don't think he's much bigger of a quote choker than like a typical player. It just for whatever reason hasn't broken for him yet. In a PGA Tour
Totally.
event. He's obviously won some European Tour events. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you made that distinction because think about this, like for golf fans out there, think of what are the biggest moments of pressure you could ever feel in golf if you're a European player or an American player, right? It has to be the Ryder Cup and the majors,
Yep.
right? That's agreed. Okay, so in the Ryder Cup, I think your colleague Steven had mentioned it really well that he's 7-0-1 or something like that in Ryder Cup
Wow.
wins for them. So this
Wow.
guy has delivered on the biggest level absolutely possible. He had the pressure of playing with the reigning Open champion Frankie, and they turned it into a joke and they turned it into Mollywood. You have to give him the
That's right.
credit when he has come through in the clutch, and he has done that. In my opinion, in the Ryder Cup, you can't. That's not a bigger ass than that.
Right. 100% great point. They all pretty much to a man say that the most pressure is the Ryder Cup. And you're right. His Ryder Cup record bears that out, that he can do it under pressure. He was incredible, obviously, that year with Mollywood when they were dominating. Yeah, it's funny. And obviously you go back to the Canadian Open when Nick Taylor makes the 72-foot putt against him in the playoff. I mean, he's had some just tough losses. But then, yeah, on the flip side, you can't bogey 18 at Travelers. That's tough.
Yes, but what are the odds that you go up against the Canadian who made the cut on the number and was having the weekend of his life? I mean, Nick Taylor, and you run into a buzzsaw and he has a 72-footer. That's in my opinion completely out of your control at that point.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You put yourself in position. It's the home crowd.
Yep.
Who was it that he was reminiscing? Stuart Sink. I did an open preview with Stuart Sink, and he's like, Garrett, this is 2023, 2 years ago. He's like, Garrett, me and Tommy just totally bonded over being the bad guy. Which, it is what it is. He has to overcome that as well, I think, sometimes, too. At least when he's in the States, or you know what I mean? Like if it's Bethpage, for example, that's going to be another situation where he's going to have to overcome the crowd. You're up against it. You know what I mean? So that's a lot to ask there. But here's what I would say, though. If he is going to have a breakthrough and people want to talk about betting, I have no problem with Tommy Fleetwood making his first PGA Tour win, a major championship, and you can take that to the bank. You got any questions? I'll deal with the teller.
Yeah,
he's so.
I'm with you. Like if he gets it done, he could definitely get it done in a major, and certainly an Open. You'd think he's a little more comfortable there. Although I know his U.S. Open track record is great too, with all the 2 final round 63s. But you mentioned America
with
versus
no pressure,
Europe. Right. Exactly. He didn't have as much pressure.
Nothing like those backdoor 63s at U.S. Open.
That's right. And like you said, when he had a chance to break that record, the putt got a little tense with that putter. But I want to go back. It's funny. I forgot what year it was. It was definitely pre-pandemic, but Paul Azinger made those famous comments during the broadcast. It was at the Honda, and Tommy Fleetwood was trying to win. And he said something to the extent of like, well, he hasn't won a PGA Tour event. And people jumped all over Azinger. And I've jumped all over Azinger too, hand up. But not for this. People jumped all over Azinger and killed him and said, oh, he's disrespecting the Europe. Well, guess what? We're 5, 6, 7 years later, he still doesn't have a PGA Tour event. So there's clearly a difference. It's clearly harder to do. It's better competition. Fleetwood plays on the PGA Tour all the time, pretty much his full schedule. So he's had plenty of opportunities, and he still hasn't gotten it done. So at some point, right, Garrett, it becomes a mental hurdle that becomes even bigger in your head, I think.
I hear you, and I'm with you. I want to be with you 100%, but I can't be because there's a guy named Scotty Scheffler who ran into Ted Scott in between those 5 years from when Azinger made those comments. So you've got a Scheffler massive weapon who has dominated the tour with the addition of Xander Schauffele, who has just been unbelievable the last couple of years, especially in the big events. If we're talking about the biggest events, Liv comes along and you consolidate those fields even more to the Siggy events. And you're looking at Rory, of course, having a good last few years. I mean, he's been up against some massive competition, guys playing in their prime. You got to look at guys playing in their prime with confidence and with experience versus Tommy Fleetwood, who has experience but not the wins. So how do you get that? You know what I mean?
Yeah. How do you get that? And it's always once he gets the one, the monkey's off his back, maybe the gates will open, the floodgates. It still could happen for Tommy. it doesn't always happen for guys like that. Will Zalatoris finally got that one win, and then, whether it's injuries or whatever, he hasn't gotten back there. So it's a lot to ask, but I know I'm with you. I can tell. I want Tommy to win. I want him to win a PGA Tour event. I want him to win a major. He's shown that he kind of, he deserves to win one of these big events. He's played enough good golf in these events to kind of justify it. I'm kind of, and that was how I always was with Sergio too. And same with Westwood.
Big time.
You play enough good golf in the biggest stages. I think at some point you just deserve to kind of win one. Unfortunately for Lee Westwood, it never happened. Sergio, it did, although it almost didn't. Needed a playoff against Justin Rose at that Masters. But the same thing with Fleetwood. He's now put together a body of work that's kind of strong enough that I once it gets to a certain point, I really start rooting for a player to kind of not only win but kind of get what they deserve. And so I think obviously he's such a popular player. It would be when Lowry won at Portrush in 2019, that was a hugely popular victory too. But I think Tommy winning this year would be just as popular based on all the heartbreaks he's gone through.
1,000%. That part of the pond, close enough to Southport, England. I mean, he's such a fan favorite in Ireland, in Northern Ireland as well. Proximity is huge. But here, I will say this though too. We were talking about Sergio a minute ago, and obviously when he missed that putt at Carnoustie, my heart was broken for, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, couldn't get me out of bed. I mean, all my buddies at the golf course I was working at, Bing Maloney, were like, dude, you okay? I'm like, my guy missed it. I can't believe it. And you know what? You know why though? Because I connect with Sergio emotionally. That's really what it is. I love his energy. I love his passion. And you get some of that with Tommy, that smile, him and Finno, his caddy, like they've been at this forever, dude. They grew up together. Right. This is a great story, and you want to see good people do well. You know what I mean? Right. What I will say, and kind of putting a bow on this before everybody thinks we're writing a biography on Tommy Fleetwood here, is I will say this. Mike Tirico told me that after Sergio missed that putt, I saw him at Monday Night Football. I was blessed. I was behind the scenes at Monday Night Football 2010 in San Francisco, the old Candlestick Park, baby. And I said, oh, man, great history. I grew up in the area. I just love that. Wow. Will Clark, Joe Montana, Steve Young. We should do another podcast just on the other sports. But what I will say, Tirico was awesome, man. He's like, Garrett, you're asking me if Sergio's ever going to win a major, like ever with that talent? 100% he is. Right. To your point right there, Alex, it's a numbers game. You're such a good iron player. You keep putting yourself in position. You're a great links player. You play that. It's going to happen. So I love that Tirico was so positive. I think it says a lot about Tirico, that he said that, and he was positive about it. I want to transition. I talk about athletes for a second. You have had an amazing connection, I think, with athletes. I remember at athletes that play golf. Okay. We're talking about basketball players. You grew up a Knicks fan, right? Okay. So let me make that long transition. Yeah. But I know that you and I were at the Players 2013 when J.R. Smith was gawking. He was absolutely gawking at that trophy, baby. Yeah. And you had a great exchange, a great interview with him. And I'm just curious, like, what was that interaction like for you as a Knicks fan? How cool was that?
That was so cool. And now that I'm thinking about it, it's crazy how different it is, 12 years later, because J.R. Smith coming there and J.R. Smith being at a golf tournament was kind of like this big deal. Like, oh, what's this NBA star kind of doing at this golf tournament? Now, everybody plays golf. I mean, every celebrity. It's incredible. I mean, just last week, LeBron James posts video and he's like, oh, I think I'm getting into this golf stuff. And he actually tweeted at J.R. Smith, obviously his former.
Oh, really?
So, you could kind of give J.R. a lot of credit. Obviously, Steph Curry a lot of credit. But like LeBron, when you think about it, there's so many big name, athletes and celebrities out there who play. He was one of the last big names who really hadn't gotten into golf. And now, I mean, look, he's got to retire at some point, right? I mean, I know he's a freak of nature. He's one of my favorites, but he's got to retire at some point. And when you retire, you need something to do. I talked to one of the athletes you mentioned I talked to this year was Blake Griffin. And he saw the writing on the wall. He only had maybe a few years left in the NBA. And he said, look, I need to find something a competitive outlet, right, for when I retire. And he was like, I never was really into golf. I had teammates like Chris Paul and other guys who
Totally.
were into golf. I never really got into it. He saw people playing during COVID in the bubble. Golf became a huge thing in the NBA, but he didn't really get into it still. And then the next year, he's like, you know what? I just got to make myself get into it. And now he is like beyond obsessed. He loves golf. He's enjoying retirement. He's not missing playing in the NBA. He's not missing getting beat up and banged up and getting hurt. And so
He's playing matches with Eric Anders Lang, baby. I mean,
that's right.
You made it. You made it if you're doing that, baby.
He's all over. He's all over. And he's doing celebrity golf and this and that. And obviously, I think, was it this week when we're talking, the Lake Tahoe event is happening, and that's just gotten bigger and bigger. And so, yeah, back to that J.R. Smith, it was kind of like almost unusual to see like an NBA player so into golf. I remember talking to him that day, and he said he had played every day since the NBA season had ended, and the Knicks had obviously been eliminated for a while at that point. And now the Knicks are back. Now they're back, but they were not good back then. And so I was like, oh my God, this guy's played like 30 straight days or whatever. And like 12 years later, he's still just as hooked as ever. We saw when he played Pine Valley a couple years ago, and he posted that picture of all the stuff he bought, like basically one of everything in the Pine Valley Pro Shop. Like, I just love the enthusiasm that these celebrities and these athletes have for golf. Totally. We all know how golf has exploded since the pandemic, and they're all playing a role in that. So it's a fun time to be into golf, and I think our great game is just going to get even more popular.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I've always thought LeBron, if the key would be if you get him on the course, get him smiling. The way some of these guys, I've been blessed to cover that Tahoe celebrity event, the American Century Championship. Yeah. I mean, I grew up in Sacramento, so Sacramento's right in between the middle of Tahoe and then San Francisco. So think about, as a kid, being able to go to Candlestick Park and watch the greats of the Bay Area, Will Clark, Kevin Mitchell, not Keith Mitchell, Kevin Mitchell. It was a special time to grow up in that area. And Tahoe, I covered it for the Turner Sports. And so I got to sit down with Charles Barkley in his hotel room a couple times, thanks to their team there. It was, what do you call that? Internal PR or the internal where you're interviewing your talent. I was a camera guy for that. But I just knew, being around that, Alex, I didn't get the chance to go to a bunch of tour events as a kid, but to be able to go to that event, I would argue that event is the most entertaining event that any sports fan could go to on the golf calendar all year. I put it up against the majors. I put it up against the Ryder Cup. If you are a true sports fan, you're going to see your guys, if it's Blake Griffin, like you mentioned, if it's Pete Sampras, if you're a tennis nut like I am too, if it's Ed McCaffrey, from the past, the old Broncos, John Elway, that you are going to be leaving with a smile on your face, guarantee your money's worth, because you've seen all your guys in the very best possible mood, not sulking like Tommy Fleetwood when he loses another major, or another player. I mean, or Shane Lowry when he has his chance and he blows it. And, it's like, it's a different feel, I guess what I'm trying to say. Sports fans, it's as good as it gets. What do you think?
No, I got to admit, I've never been out there for that event. Unfortunately, I had another chance this year. My wife's birthday is July 11th, and that tournament is always there. And I'm always like, man, I just don't think I can get away. She would kill me. But having seen, various pro-ams throughout the year on Wednesday at different tournaments. I'm with you, man. It's incredible how much fun fans have, because they're still getting to watch golf, but they're watching their heroes in other sports play golf. And we saw what Caitlin Clark playing in the pro-am in the fall. What an attraction! Or at the John Deere last year, and she had thousands of people following her. I mean, like, I'm with you, man. It's cool, and you see them interacting, and they're trash talking, and they're letting down. I mean, obviously Charles Barkley. I haven't seen that in person, but the video clips of him chatting with the crowd and making side bets and doing that. I mean, it's as entertaining as get. Blake Griffin is fantastic. Steph Curry is great in those situations. Pat Mahomes, Travis Kelce out in Lake Tahoe. There's a ton of stuff. Marty Fish is the best of all those players, I think.
Thank
you. He's great as well. But and Tony Romo, got to give him a shout. But it's quite a celebrity circuit that's kind of come up. And, and these guys are legit players. I think Marty Fish shot a 62 at Tahoe. I think he has the course record. I mean, these guys can really play. And like you said, they're very entertaining. And they're in even though they want to compete, and they're very nervous, they all say they're actually almost more nervous. They still
Right.
seem to have a better time because it's not their livelihood that's on the line. It's not their legacy that's on the line. It's
Yeah.
golf. It's their hobby. So I agree, man. If you can get to a pro-am, or especially if you can get out to Lake Tahoe. I know, what's the new one? The one, the Hilton Grand Vacations, the one that's
Yep.
with the LPGA event now in January at Lake Nona. That's tremendous as well. So those events are really cool. And obviously AT&T Pebble Beach forever has been the gold standard of those kind of events.
Totally. We could talk celebrity golfers all day, man, because we both love sports. We're diehard sports fans, Alex.
Yeah,
It's in our blood, baby. We love basketball.
that's
You and
right.
Chris Paul and me and Spud Webb and all the Muggsy Bogues. Those are my guys, man. I'll take my guys versus
Yeah.
your guy any day of the week. But hey, to wrap up real quick, in 3 sentences, give me a open pick we should be looking out for. That's maybe not a top 10. Just
Yeah.
in just 30 seconds.
I'm going to keep picking this guy, and he's borderline top 10, but I'm going to keep picking Victor Hovland
I love it.
to win an Open. I've been on him that one year when he was in the final group with Roy. I know, I'm sorry, I'm going over 3 sentences here. He, we all know he has trouble with the chipping and maybe the putting, but at the Open, I think that gets, mitigated a little bit, and he can putt from off the green. And I love the battle that he showed at Oakmont when he would make a couple bogeys, but then he would respond with a couple birdies, and he threw himself right back in there. And if a couple putts had fallen for him, who knows? He could have been the guy to take down JJ Spawn. But he ended up obviously showing JJ Spawn the line with that last putt on 18. So maybe the golf gods are due to give him and Tommy Fleetwood one, at some point soon. I do like Victor Hovland to eventually win an Open championship.
Totally. I like that experience, like you said, in the final group. It's so critical. You need that kind of
Yeah.
experience in the last group.
Yeah.
You play with Brooks Koepka at Oak Hill. That is invaluable.
That's
So
right.
take that to the bank, and it means something, I think, for Tommy Fleetwood, too, at Port Rush. So I'm going to take Tommy. Just note, by the way, Tommy is going to win. That's just my opinion, and take it or leave it. But, Alex, good to see you, my friend, and we'll catch up soon.
Sounds good, man. Thanks for having me on. Take care. Enjoy the golf.